to today's Scaling with People podcast. I'm going to be Curry, your host and CEO founder of Guide to HR. I'm excited to be talking about technology and people for startup perspective. And I have Oshri Cohen here with me to talk about it. So Oshri, welcome and tell us a little bit about yourself.
First of all, I feel very welcome. And now you're asking me to talk about myself. So we got 3 hours at least. Oh my, 25 years in tech, had 3 startups, worked for 15 years in the industry as well as an employee, had every role in tech you can imagine, from developer, senior developer, director, VP, CTO multiple times. And now I'm a fractional CTO. So now I help companies, startups, SMBs, large organizations with expert technical advice. Sometimes I even run the projects, or I run the companies themselves. I run the entire technical organization.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you said you're a startup founder yourself. So I love learning from others, and I think our audience does as well. So tell me, what is one thing that you learned through your experience that you go, man, I wish every startup founder knew this and wouldn't make the same mistake?
Oh, you're gonna like this one. Okay. What I wish every single startup founder knew: do not get a technical co-founder. That's what I wish everybody would finally get this. And if you're launching a startup, hammer this into stones, carry it down the mountain. I don't care. Rule number 1 and rule number 10, don't get a technical co-founder. For a very simple reason. Getting a technical co-founder is like getting just to code, just for coding, right? And a technical co-founder who has no business sense or product sense or industry experience or something beyond tech. They have to have something beyond tech, right? Because when people think about technical co-founder, they're only thinking about the tech part. If your technical co-founder can't have a conversation with a VC or with a bank or with a client without looking like a complete moron, then they're the wrong person. So what I tell, and I use this analogy often, and it really, really makes sense for people, getting a technical co-founder just to code is like getting married to have your house cleaned. At some point, your house is clean. What else do you do with this person? You have no relationship. They can't contribute at every other level, at any other level. And a co-founder needs to contribute at every level. Sure, They're the CTO, but the CTO needs to be involved in marketing, in sales, in this, in that, in ops, in customer service, across the board. And people try to typecast the technical co-founder, you're the tech guy or the tech gal. Shut up and code. And that's it. Mm-hmm. And that's the worst case scenario, right? I have seen them flake out more times than I care to count, right? And that's what I wish startup founders learned. The second lesson, there's 2 lessons in this case. The second lesson is to realize that your startup, your business will go through 4 generations. And that's the kind of technical co-founder you need. One that can span all 4 generations. Now, what is a generation in a business? In a small business, a generation can last a few years. Because, you're scaling, now you're making some money, count $1 million here, $1 million there, you're growing your team, generation after generation, could take a few years. But in the startup world, going from the one generation to a second could be 6 months. Going from generation 2 to generation 3 could be another year, right? Now, how does the CTO fit into this, the technical co-founder fit into these generations? So the CTO, at the beginning, at generation 1 of your business, they need to be a great engineer. They need to code better than anybody on the planet, but they can't be the only one. But it's okay if they're the only one. Fine, let them code. Generation 2, which could be 3 months later, 6 months later, depending on when you get your pre-seed or seed or whatever stage you're at, well, they need to be a manager now. So you're taking someone deeply creative and say, manage people, the least creative thing on the planet, right?
Yeah.
So, and that transition could be just a few months, maybe even a year, tops, right? Where in industry, you could have 5 years, 6 years before you actually transition at that speed, right? So you've got that. The third generation, they're a leader because now they've got managers to lead, and they have a sizable organization. Again, in a startup, that could be from the time that they start, could be 2 years. They go suddenly, oh, we got 50 million in our Series A. Okay, well, now you need to scale the development team to 30. I don't know. I'm throwing a number out there, right? And then the fourth generation is visionary. Are they that person that is going to now think about the industry, think about the business and how to scale it from a technology point of view? Because I can tell you that much, they're not involved every single day in development anymore. Now they've got directors, they've got managers, or they've got at least one VP of engineering or someone's dealing with the details. You can't have this person who owns 20% of your business dealing at the lowest level of the organization continuously or still coding at that point. So in my experience, what I've seen, and I've replaced many CTOs, they usually flake out at generation 2. They flake out when it becomes time to become a manager. That's when you see, oh, you're not really that good, are you? That's not really what I don't need someone to code. I can buy a coder tomorrow. That's the thing. So those are the 2 lessons.
Yeah. And I do find that in general, people who are doing, it takes a while to transition into that manager functionality and being a good manager to being a good leader. And then even harder to jump that gap of, I'm not just a leader, I'm now the visionary driving the business in the right direction. And that's a big gap. And to have someone be able to do all of that.
Very few people can actually do that. The ones who can do that are the ones in the unicorns, right? That's the thing. Those are the ones. It takes a very, very special person, and me. I can do that, but I'm just saying. If you're listening to this, I just cleaned my fingernails on my shirt. I'm kidding, but also true. That's why people hire me as a fractional CTO, because I can do a lot of these things. But so most people cannot scale at that level at that speed. That's when they need a coach. That's when they need a strategic advisor to help them out. And I coach a lot of CTOs. This is what I do as well as part of my business. And I can tell you, 90% of what I tell them is, don't ever say that again. Do not send that email. Delete. Never refer to this as this again or this problem as that way, because they don't know. They're first time. I really like working with second time founders because they've been through the ringer. They get it. They get it a lot.
Then you're just polishing the already. Yeah, you don't have to take the rock and make it a diamond. You're just polishing the diamond and cleaning it up to finalize, right? To get that really.
And the thing is, people have the capacity for it, but they need to just be advised. They need that strategic advisor, right? Probably the worst thing that I've ever seen is someone who was a student who became the CTO because they've co-founded something, but they've never coded anything beyond a napkin. And I'm like, how are you even going to make this work? Where are you basing your experience on? It's nuts how many startup founders are stuck in that situation.
Yep. Yeah. And I've also seen too, if you get into a partnership or a co-founder, there comes a time, and maybe that's like that phase 2 that you're talking, generation 2, maybe generation 3 timeframe that I've seen, where the founder 1 is now clashing with founder 2 because what you shared, and also because of the fact that they don't have that business acumen. I can really see around the corners and start being that visionary that the business may not necessarily need right now, but is going to need tomorrow. So I see a lot of that too happening, and then that takes a toll on everybody in the org, and especially the founders, and can cause some real damage to the organization as you're trying to build it. Put some big holes.
People
for sure.
People think that a toxic workplace is when somebody is grabbing you inappropriately. It isn't. I mean, I'm assuming people don't do that anymore, but
you'd hope not.
We hope it doesn't happen, right? But people think that that's what a toxic work culture is only like. But when you have someone inexperienced leading you and just constantly leading you in the wrong direction, that's toxic as well.
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. When
That's
you lose
toxic
faith and
environment.
trust, you don't have trust in your leadership, that
Mm-hmm.
then starts to weigh on you, and then it weighs on others. And yeah, it's a
Yeah.
whole snowball effect for sure. So let's kind of jump a little bit. Let's talk about people. We were talking about people right now in management.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you have a lot of experience with your own business as well as an employee and manager within organizations. Tell me a little bit about your ideal approach to building the right tech team for a startup. What should a founder be thinking about when they're starting to build their technology side of their business?
You start with generalists and you complement with specialists. You get the developers that can do a little bit of everything. They're not experts, but then you get one expert on contract to go in and advise, because developers, most people can do a great job. I mean, you get a marketing person who to write copy or to do ad spend. They're going to do a decent job, but then you get the expert to come and advise them and say, by the way, you're not seeing the angles that I'm seeing after 20 years of experience. Approach it this way, this way, this way, that way to avoid major mistakes. Well, they're not idiots. They're humans. They have a brain. They figured it out, but now they have a little bit of extra help, right? And then
Yeah.
based on that information alone, that adjustment from a strategic advisor makes all the difference. And then they can operate at that level. But now you don't need to pay, that $250,000 for this expert to be there full time doing remedial work. You need a consult. This is why companies hire me all the time. Augment my team, because I can augment them across every aspect, including technology, data management, whatever it may be. Augment my team. I come in and everybody goes up 10 years of experience within a few weeks, because that's what I do. That's how I do things.
So as you're building out the team, and people are people, right? What are some of the challenges that you see in regards to building a team out that's going to be really cohesive, learning from each other, learning about what has been done while making improvements and continuing to build the product or technology or whatever it is that this startup founder is building out?
So every business owner wants their employees to work hard.
Of course.
Obviously,
Yeah.
right?
And forget that those people are not in it. This is not their baby, like the founder. The founder is your baby, right? But as an employee, it's not your baby. This is something you do because you enjoy the work and you got to get paid to live the life you want to live.
Exactly, right? So everybody wants their employees to work hard. But what they fail to continuously optimize, and this is the founder's job 100%, okay, let's say 90%, is making sure that the work is not hard to do. That's the key aspect here. If I work hard and the job is hard to do, it's a Sisyphean task. I'm going to constantly just push that boulder up a hill nonstop, never end. It's hard to do. I can't stop. Otherwise, the boulder is going to go backwards. It's stressful. People don't deliver as much. But if the job is really easy to do, you provided them all of the tools, the right processes, there's no friction in the system anywhere. Well, if someone works hard, they're producing hard, they're producing a lot, and they're going to love it, and they're going to want to do it. When the job is hard to do, people don't want to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They say, oh, people don't want to work these days.
But yeah. Well, they like challenges, but they don't want to be faced up with, an impossible challenge.
So I'll give you an example. Having challenges, 100%. You're not giving them remedial tasks. Here's a challenge. Yes, it's hard to do. Figure it out. That's your job. That's what I'm paying you for. But making sure that they have the right tools so that they can actually execute on the work safely without worries. So with my engineering teams, when I take them over, I take a look, and I say, okay, well, who's deployed to production? It's just a concept, a technical concept. Startup founders will know, maybe you know. If it's only the CTO that does it, I see there's a major problem right from the get-go. I take the power away from the decision maker and I give it to the employees. You guys figure it out. You figure out your own stuff. Here are the rules that we need to operate in. Here are the constraints. Go ahead, do your job. Most of the time, I even remove a manager. We don't need a manager in this case. You guys can manage your own stuff. You don't need a manager for 3 people. You need a manager for 8, 10 people. That's when it starts, right?
Yeah.
And so giving them this autonomy, and autonomy comes with responsibility, and responsibility comes with a job that is easy to do. No one's going to take responsibility if it's hard. And if I press a button, I'm going to break things. Right? So I'm working with a client right now, exactly that. They deploy and update the software once every quarter because it is so hard to do. Oof. And because their development process is so fractured and so difficult, well, developers are just taking on the easy tasks. They're not doing the hard stuff. They're taking forever to work. And then they're wondering why people are leaving, why they have a 40% turnaround.
Yikes.
Rollover. I don't know what the term is again.
Turnover, yep.
Yeah, turnover. Exactly, right? Sorry.
That's okay.
Two words together and I mixed it. 40% of their staff right now is leaving every year. Imagine that every year.
That is so costly and time consuming in a startup world. You don't have the time and luxury to have that kind of turnover.
In this case, it's not a startup. In this case, a $50 million a year business.
Oof.
So, wow. Yeah, it's expensive, but they've got the money to hide the problem until somebody noticed the problem. Then they brought in a VP of people. That brought me in, but that's a whole thing. You know?
Yeah. But I love going back to what you said about managers. I do see a lot of times I come into startups and they just have this really thick layer of managers and they're wondering why things are so slow or communication isn't there or the culture is being impacted. It's like that thick layer of managers. You do not need that when you're in a startup mode. Like 150 employee org, 20 managers probably at most, unless you have some very unique org structure. But like that thick layer of managers, if you're listening and have that, something to think about and take away of how can you thin that down. It's really hard. What I see is that these startups want to give people the promotion opportunity, but they're not a big company. So of course they're not going to have 40 open manager roles that they can promote these people into. So they make it and give one person to this manager to make them be a manager. And then all of a sudden now you got, 40% of your organization is managers.
You approached a very interesting concept, which is the career path or career trajectory of a developer, right?
Yeah.
Back in the day, you wanted to make more money, you had to become a manager. That's it. You have to become a manager, and you are promoted continuously until you can't produce anymore at that level, and then you're stuck at that level. So what happens with that? You end up having mediocrity at the top because basically people are gonna float up as high as they can float up, and they're gonna stuck there, and that's it. They can't move any higher than that. And so you've got a whole bunch of leaders that can't operate effectively and just making mistakes all over the place, which is a horrible way of operating.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you could be a developer for 40 years and you'll be fine. And you can pull your $350,000, $400,000 a year if you're a specialist.
Absolutely.
Just coding all day long, not managing anyone, right? You have some leadership and mentoring requirements the higher up you go.
Subject matter expert.
Yeah, and you become an SME, 100% go for it. But you do not and should not be promoting developers to management unless what they actually want. If they want that, you get them a management coach and put them in management classes. Right? Yes. That's the thing. Because
start having them do small tasks of manager tasks before you make them a manager. I always love having somebody like take on a few tasks. Hey, this is what management's really about, because people, you don't know what you don't know until you're in it. You think you want something and then you're in it. You're like, oh, I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. I don't want to, wear that or whatever it might be. So it's like, give them the opportunity to live the life of what a manager looks like at the lower level. If they're still interested, then double down and get them that coach and get them that support then get them promoted.
So at some point I did a study, informal study. I wanted to know why people quit their jobs. Why do people quit their jobs?
Your study found it was because their manager. Number one reason, their manager.
Oh, usually it's because the manager's garbage, right?
But
those dumpster fires we can see a mile away. It's because people get bored and they want upward mobility, right? Or they want to change career path, or they want to try another job or whatever it is. And so in the organizations that I work in, I put in a policy and a program to actually try a job. risk-free. You're going to try this job for 2 weeks. Full on. I completely sever everything that you're working on that day. That in the next 2 weeks, you want to be a manager? You're going to be a manager. You're going to sit next to that manager, and they're going to dispatch work to you. You're going to be at meetings. You're going to take notes. They're going to be working together, right? And you try it out. And if you don't like it, go right back to your job. No problem. You didn't leave your job. You didn't quit. You didn't do interviews. You tried it out. You didn't like it.
No harm, no foul.
No harm, no foul. Why not? And then people stick around beyond 3 years. They stick around for 5 and 10 years because they got to try a job. I had a developer who wanted to become a product manager. He's like, you know what? I don't like development that much. He went to become a product manager. Within 2 days, he came back. It's like,
always green on the other side, right?
All we were doing was yapping about stuff, and it wasn't for me. Went back to becoming a developer. That's it. After 2 days.
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
Their salary doesn't change. They get to try it out, and then if they like the job, then they're in place for that position when it becomes available.
Yep, exactly. I love that idea. I'm definitely gonna try to incorporate that with some of my clients. So as we wrap up today, any last thoughts or final words of wisdoms or tools or tricks you'd like to share with the audience?
Oh my gosh. Technology is only a fraction of what a CTO actually does. Even though it's in the middle, the T in CTO, Chief Technology Officer, it's only a fraction of what they do. Most of what they do is leadership, is business planning, is alignment. It's not for everyone.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be the CTO until they realize, oh, I have to be a boss too. Man, I don't want to do that. It's the worst job in the world. You either want it or you don't want it. If you can't do it or you can't do it. People think, oh, I'm a chief technology officer, I'm going to make all the decisions. No, you're not going to make any decisions. What you're going to do is you're going to open up the dialogue so your team can make a decision. You're not making any decision. You're just removing all of the friction so that the people that you're paying a lot of money for, they can figure out the problem for you. And then they give you solutions. And then now you're going to say, yeah, let's go with plan A.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what people don't realize about this job.
Yeah, so true. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Oshri. It was great having you on the call today. And for those listening, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, morning, wherever you are in the world, whenever you're listening to this.